Thanks for that kind introduction. Welcome. Good morning, everyone. I love having the liberal arts dean back there. It was always a big challenge when I was in school, making sure I got the periods and the paragraphs, everything just right. I like the math, zeros and ones. President Cabrera, thanks for the very warm introduction that you gave me today. I want to personally thank you and Lynn for hosting our entire team here. When I come, it's not always simple, and especially in these times, it's even trickier with all the requirements. Thank you for getting that right. And thank you, too, to all the leaders here at Georgia Tech and students. Those of you watching virtually, I appreciate you joining me for what I hope will be a good conversation today. I have some opening remarks, and then President Cabrera and I will have a chance to have a lively conversation. I know we have a couple special guests, some good friends. Former Congressman Phil Gingry's here. Phil, good to see you. Senator Chambliss, thank you, too. When I was nominated to be the CIA director, Senator Chambliss was so gracious. He'd spent so much time in the intelligence community. You were so gracious to me to help me figure out what was up and what was down, and I deeply appreciate that. It's good to see you again. As President Cabrera said, I graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point, studying engineering, although I joke, don't drive across a bridge that I had anything to do with. It's been an awfully long time. Some of my classmates ended up in the Army Corps of Engineers. I happened to command a cavalry unit, but I can tell you math matters an awful lot when you're bore sighting the cannon of an M1A1 tank. And I'll say, too, even the State Department, you talked about people leaving this institution going on to careers in diplomacy. One of the first things that came across my desk as Secretary of State was there was an important dam across a bridge in Iraq, and it was in trouble. And we were trying to figure out, could we figure out how to save it? Could we figure out how to deploy resources in a difficult place? And we had the best engineers in the U.S. government, some of whom worked for me at the United States Department of State, trying to figure out the best solution, the best contractor to bring in, how we would do this to protect Baghdad and the downstream places in this historic Euphrates River Valley and the Tigris River Valley from potential flooding should the dam collapse. So all you engineers out there, state.gov, go to the website, take a good look at it. We would welcome your career in the United States Department of State. Now, I'm not lost. I know this is Georgia the state, not Georgia the country. But it's important that I come here to talk about the topic that I have in front of us today, because this is the place where American national security intersects deeply with the things that happen at important research institutions like this one. I thought I'd start with a quick story by way of explanation. Professor Fei-Ling Wang is with us here today. Professor, where I didn't see you sitting where? Welcome. Nice to see you. Several years ago, Professor Wang took a trip to China where he was scooped up by security agents inside of China. He was held in a secret location for 2 weeks. Professor Wang was interrogated and threatened. They wanted information about his research about China and his time teaching at my alma mater at West Point. He could tell you the stories better than I could, but they thought they could intimidate him or perhaps recruit him because he's ethnically Chinese. It's a blessing he's here with us today, and thankfully he was released after pressure from the leadership lots of places, including this very university and the Carter Center. The lesson I think that we can take away from this is clear. It's that the Chinese Communist Party wants what we have, and they will do whatever they must do to take it and get it. They will steal our stuff. They will pressure critics of the Chinese Communist Party to keep quiet. They will do whatever it takes. And it's important to come and talk with the American people about this, because Americans must know how the Chinese Communist Party is poisoning the well of our higher education institutions for its own ends, and how those actions degrade our freedoms and American national security. If we don't educate ourselves, if we're not honest about what's taking place, we'll get schooled by Beijing. Now, it's taken this country, and indeed the entire free world, a long time to understand the trajectory that China is on today. In fact, we're not quite there yet everywhere in the world. There's no one to hold accountable for this. That's not the important part. Because for a long time, Republicans, Democrats, leaders all across academia, institutions, commercial space, thought that by trading and engaging with China, that the Chinese Communist Party would reform itself, it would loosen up, it would embrace economic and political freedom, and it would present less risk to freedom around the world. But instead, that's not what we got. Instead, the Chinese communists used the wealth that was created by this to tighten their grip on power over the Chinese people, and to build a high-tech, repressive state like the world has never seen. General Secretary Xi Jinping has made clear his intentions. You only have to listen to what he says. He says he wants total control at home and to make China the #1 power abroad. And he's well on his way to working on that project. He's building up the People's Liberation Army. He's manipulating international organizations for Beijing's benefit. And he's engaging, as we have seen in TV only just these last 2 days, he's engaging in a vast influence campaign all across the world. And that may, for some of you sitting at home today, seem like a long ways away and very ambitious touch for Xi Jinping to make. But I must say, he has his eye on each and every one of us. Over the past year, I've talked to America's governors in Washington about this, state legislators in Wisconsin, tech leaders in Silicon Valley, many other groups. I've gone out to talk to them about this challenge. And today, I want to talk about what's happening in schools across America, especially research institutions in places like where I'm standing today. Just think about it. Chinese Communist Party scientists aren't pioneering cancer cures. We are. And it's not North Korean biochemists that are producing safe COVID vaccines. We are. And Iranians aren't ahead in supercomputing. No, in fact, we are. It is the free world and free peoples that produce these superior results. And we should be very proud of that fact. But we have an obligation to protect it, to preserve it, to make sure that that's the case 10 and 50 and 100 years from now. Because on places like this campus, scientists have pioneered quantum computing, artificial intelligence, pediatric technology, even autonomous robots that can function without human control. And I must say that frightens me just a bit. Look, the Chinese Communist Party knows it can never match our innovation. It has state-owned enterprise. It's an authoritarian regime. It is a government-centric focus. It's why it sends 400,000 students a year to the United States of America to study. 400,000 students a year studying in our universities come from one country. It is no accident. Much of the high-end industrial base inside of China is based on stolen technology or technology purchased from other nations. It's not homegrown. Beijing doesn't want Chinese researchers to stay here in the United States. Indeed, after they're trained, they want them to come back. They want to induce their return for the singular purpose of serving the socialist motherland. Look, the party's propaganda apparatus cannot tolerate pesky Americans or Chinese nationals exposing its bankrupt system, or the fact that the Chinese people can actually flourish when they are in free societies. It doesn't want you to know what I'm about to tell you. Now, let's be clear. I want to be sure that my language is precise today. When I say China, I'm talking about the Chinese Communist Party. I love and value, as we all do, our Chinese American community and the Chinese people that live here in the United States and those that live in China as well. We want good things for them. And I say genuinely, because as of cases like Xin Wang, a researcher at the University of California, San Francisco, who allegedly lied about being a People's Liberation Army officer, all the while collecting information on UCSF labs. The good news is the FBI nabbed him. And Xi Xiong studied electrical engineering at Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago. He tried to enlist in the United States Army. He allegedly admitted his ties to Chinese intelligence, which tasked him with recruiting engineers and scientists where he was working. These are just two examples. But what's more, the Chinese Communist Party deploys dollars just as much as it does cloaks and daggers